The Great Gatsby. Many years ago, my father gave me some advice which I have always remembered. When you are tempted to judge someone, try to remember that many people have not had the same opportunities as yourself. He didn't elaborate any further. He didn't have to. I knew exactly what he meant. We had an unspoken understanding of one another. Because of his advice, I always erred in the side of caution. This, in turn, caused me become known as a non-judgmental sort of character who was then subjective to the mundane conversation of a good number of individuals. I was also a very labor politician, and whenever I felt another was going to confine me, I would often pretend to be asleep or just focus my attention elsewhere. Despite my privileged ability to understand how to be a man and my passion about shortcoming, I realized that there are limits. I reached the point where I least wanted everyone to have the same consistent value. I didn't care what those values were founded upon. I just wanted to be free, the burden of being forced to earn to the mind to her father. Gatsby stood for everything which I desired in life. Yet he is the only man whose problems, feelings, and motion interested me. Gatsby was a remarkable man. He was filled with such promise and hope that I never seen in anyone before. He possessed amazing face for romance, and I am sure I will never find such enthusiasm in anyone again. Gatsby achieved a great success in his life, but it was the road he took to the success that destroyed him. I heard that my family descended from Dukes of Buchan, but it was my grandfather's brother who started my family business. He started wholesale hardware business in Midwestern City. It has been in my family for a third generation, and my father still runs it today. People often call me that I look like my great uncle, but I can only compare myself on single portrait of him in my father's office. After graduating in New Haven in 1915, I fought in Great War. Despite the violence men experienced during the war, I enjoyed myself, and it made it very difficult for me to settle back into life in Midwest. Because of this feeling, I decided to head east. I thought that I might try my hand in the bond business. All the people I knew did the same thing. I thought I too might put my 12 process dealing with bond. My family told her they would consider things very cautious, but eventually they all agreed. My father agreed to support me financially for a year until I got on my feet. After a lot of planning, several delays, I eventually came east in the year 1922. For me, it was going to be a permanent move. As soon as I arrived there, set about finding some accommodation. I was used to a large amount of space with lots of trees. So when another young man the offer suggested we share a house, I immediately agreed. He sold house rent for $80 a month, but I knew he was suddenly straight for Washington. I moved into the house alone, a dog which ran off a few days later. I bought an old dog and hired a Finnish woman to cook and clean for me. I felt like a lonely outsider for a while until a stranger stopped me in the street. He asked, "How do I get to Redstack Village?" I suddenly felt like one of the locals as I guided through the destination. A new feeling of being comfortable in my surroundings came in. I sat down to begin my main task of reading. I passed several bonds for finance, banking, and another subject related to my chosen field of work. I had the intention of reliving my college days when I had been very well read. I even read a good number of editorials for your near news. The neighborhood which I tried not found myself living was not the most treacherous community in North America. On a very narrow island just east New York, there are two very interesting land formations. They lie approximately 20 miles in the city. These are called the X. They are completely identical and are almost separated by a bay. They sit in what is known as Long Island Sound. Despite being completely identical in shape and size, these two eggs share many differences. I live on the west egg. This is less the fashionable side, where residents are part of the new rich. These people have only recently become wealthy, and these eggs are still trying to develop their identity in the upper class. My house is right at the end egg. It is located between two very large houses. These houses are usually rented in summer in area of $12,000–15,000 for the season. The house and the rising massive structure, it looks a lot like Hotel de Ville in Normandy. It was a fairly new house, and the obvious just around the covered. At the back, there was a marvelous swimming pool about 140 acres garden each lawn. It was in this house that Gatsby resided. Of course, I didn't know at that point. Compared his magnificent house, the one I was living in looked like a shambles. However, I was able to overlook this point. I had a magnificent view of Long Island Sound. I could park in my neighbor's backyard, and I was living shortly with a millionaire. All this for the bargain price of only $80 a month. Oh yes, $80 a month. Only $80 a month. On a beautiful evening, I found myself driving over across the bay to the Buchanan's house. They live on the east egg. Across the bay, I can see the mansion which the light was sparkling in the water. It was quite a magnificent life. Tom Buchanan lived on east egg, while Daisy, who was my second cousin. I didn't know them very well, although I have attended college with Tom. After I got back from the war, I spent a couple of days with them in Chicago. Tom was a very impressive man. Back in college in New Haven, Tom had been one of the most successful and powerful college football players. He excelled so greatly at the age of 21 that every achievement he made after almost seemed like disappointment. He also came from an extremely wealthy family. He also lived a very extravagant life. After marrying, Tom and Daisy have lived a very carefree life. They travel here and there, will avoid rich people and playing polo. It was quite surprising and finally decided to come settle in the East. During a telephone conversation with Daisy, she told me that they would live permanently in the East. I found it difficult to believe because I could not imagine Tom being happy in one place. He lived past few years in search of something that reflects existing dramatic for 4 years. Dramatically put 4 years. Dramatically. The evening I drove to Tom Daisy house, which quite more very windy. When I arrived at our house, I was really taken aback. Tom was very wealthy, but I do not the extravagant house that I drove up that evening. It was lovely red and white Georgian colonial mansion. For about a quarter mile, front of lovely garden, brick walks made their way down to the beach. It was covered in vine, and at the front there was a lined French window. They were all wide open to capture the afternoon in the end. I approached the entrance, then Tom was standing on top of the veranda. He was still in his right clothes and he stood at the legs apart. He had A's in psychology, but he did not listen to his size and strength. I under his right clothes that his powerful muscles moved. He was about 3 years of age. His eyes fair and eyes still glowed with confident arrogance. His voice was deep and resonating. Whenever he spoke, his voice always conveyed contempt. This caused more than just a few people hate him. We were never very close in college, but despite that, I always got the impression he wanted me as more than equipment. We stood on the veranda for some time. Looking around, he said, "This is very nice place here." He took my arm and turned it around. We stood looking out over the ground. We looked out over the garden, which included an Italian garden and half an rose garden. All of this is belonged to the old man, the man, Tom told me. Why don't you go inside now? Why don't you go inside now? Tom took me through the front entrance and into a high hallway. This hallway led to a bright room lined the French window. These windows were open. They were trimmed wide, contrast with the immaculate lawn seemed to make it all the way to the window. The windows stood quite strong, and some curtains were flapping above the wind the other end of the room. I looked around, noticed that the only thing the wind was not affecting was the large couch. Two women were sitting at the end of it and skirts also fluffing around. They were dressed in white and they looked like a balloon that was mercilessly being tossed around by the wind. I stood there watching everything being blown around until the thundering sound of Tom closing window. The trap wind was further stopped in minutes, and finally, everything in the room became calm. I was now able to examine two women more carefully. I had not met the younger of the two. She was completely stretched out on one end of the couch. She was completely still, and with her chin pulled up a little, gave no hint that she is dreaming. I was taken aback by her inattention and the mumbles that hurled through the still room. Daisy was with the other on my couch. She laughed a little and leaned forward. I laughed a little too and came furthering into the room. "I'm so real to see you," she explained. She came over to me and gave her another little charming laugh. She took my hand, looked in my face, giving me the feeling there was no one else around. She was rather seen. She whispered to me very quietly that the familiar name the girl behind us was Baker. Daisy was known for whispering things quietly. I even been told she did it because she wanted people to lean in towards her. I looked behind Daisy and I saw Miss Baker nod her head in agreement ever so slightly. Again, having felt her disturbed, I mumbled an apology. I looked at Daisy again, and she started asking me questions. She read it that night, but she had a sad, lovely neck about her. Her eyes sparkled. She spoke in an excited way that man could never forget. Her voice sang and compelled men to listen. In a unspoken tone, her voice hinted at exciting things that she had experienced and suggested the more excitement over the horizon. I stopped up in Chicago for a while before I came east, I told her. All of your friends and family asked me to send their love to you. Do they miss me? She cried. Of course they do. Everyone is mourning. Everyone pinned to the left wheel on the back of their car blacks a sign of mourning. You should hear them crying or feel along a nursery too, I said. Tom, let's go back there. We should go there tomorrow. Would you like to see the baby? She asked me. Of course, I'd love to see you, I said. She's sleeping at the moment. She's 3. Have you ever seen her? She asked. No, not once. Tom, who seemed bored by the conversation, came over and put his hand on my shoulder. So, what are you going to do, Nick? He asked me. I'm going to be working with bombs. Which company? He asked. I told him. He said. I never heard of them. I was a bit offended by this. I said, well, if you stay in Israel for any period of time, you will certainly hear of them. We're certainly staying east now, Tom said. As he spoke, he looked over Daisy, waiting for her reaction. We'd be stupid to want to read anyone else. Absolutely. It was Miss Baker who said that. She had not said anything the whole time I was there, and her contribution to the conversation took me quite by surprise. The senior comment surprised her because she got up and said, I'm stiff. I don't know how long I've been lying on the couch. Don't blame me, said Daisy. I've been trying to get you out to go to New York all afternoon. Just then, your servant came out with a tray of full cocktail. No, thank you, said Miss Baker. I'm in training. Tom was surprised by this. You are? I can't believe that you ever get anything done. He took a drink and emptied it and filled one more full of water. I looked at Miss Baker and wondered what it was she needed to get done. She was a very attractive girl. She was very petite with very good posture. She tended to her shoulders back. She had gray eyes. She looked at me curiously. I suddenly realized that I'd seen her before. I understand you live in West Egg, she said. There was an undertone of disapproval in her voice. I know one person there. I haven't met anyone there yet, I said. You must know Gatsby, she said. Daisy interrupted her at point. Gatsby? What Gatsby? She demanded. Dinner was none before I got the chance to say that he was my neighbor. Tom took my arm, pushed me through toward dinner and being served. The two men walked ahead of us, and we entered on the veranda. The sun was setting, a full candle flickered on the table. Of course, the wind had completely eased by this time. We don't need candles yet, commented Daisy, who put them out immediately. Did you know that it will be the longest day here in about 2 weeks? She asked. I always wait for the longest day of the year I'm missing. We should plan to do something on that day, said Miss Baker, yawning. Good idea. What should we do? Daisy asked. I was about to say something, but then Daisy quickly said, Look, I hurt my finger. We all looked at our fingers, black and blue. You dirty Tom, she accused. I know it was an accident, but you still did it. That's my punishment for making huge hooking physical sample of even with jokingly I had that word hawking, said Tom. Hawking, exclaimed Daisy. Hawking? What does it mean, hawking? Why, he doesn't want to hear hawking. I'm not sure, but today I figured out. Today I read aloud and with vocabulary. I wanna listen with crystal clear meaning. The Great Gatsby. Rumors and mysteries. The Great Gatsby, Chapter 2. Rumor of mysteries. The rumor is mysteries. The rumor is mysteries. The rumor is mysteries. While we waited for dinner to be served, Daisy and Miss Baker were occasionally laughing their own private conversation. All their accepted presence of Tom and me dared a little too entertaining, and they hardly responded to our effort to entertain them. They seemed to casually accept the evening would come to close. This was quite different to attitudes west. Evening usually hurried through the dread of the evening ever coming to an end. I feel quiet and civilized and drunk, Daisy, I said to her. I wish you would talk about more everything. Talk about Tom, but before Daisy even got a chance to respond. Civilization just falling apart. Tom said abruptly. Have you ever heard of the other garter? He wrote a book titled The Rise of the Color Empires. Tom spoke quite roughly that surprised me. No, I haven't read it, I told him. You should. The writer based the whole book on science. He says the white race must be careful or be taken over by all the other. Tom said. Tom liked to read a lot of books about philosophical subjects. It's all very deep. Daisy said. Tom looked at Daisy with shoulder noddings and said, No, this book's scientific. The writer has it all worked out. He could demonstrate how it will be possible for other races to rear and dominate. We had the fight to maintain control. You have to beat them into submission. Daisy whispered to me and winked at the same time. Tom continued to talk. We have Nordic background. You do, Nick. I will. Miss Baker doesn't insult Daisy. It is Western civilization, crazy science, art. It all works together, makes together civilization. I looked at Tom, thought that he looked pathetic. He was trying so hard to embrace his former complacency. I was in the middle of my thought when the telephone rang. The butler went inside to answer. Daisy took the opportunity to whisper something to me. I want to tell you a secret. It's about the book on snow. Do you want to hear about it? She asked. It's the very reason why I came to visit, I said. You used to be a silver porter for some wealthy New York people. They had a silver service for 200 people. It was a job to polish the silver, but it is eventually at first known. Finally, he had to give up his job. I looked at Daisy and I noticed that her face was glowing. Her delicate voice almost forced me to lean in towards her. The virtually appeared and whispered something in Tom's ear. The expression on Tom's face changed. He frowned the god of without saying the word. Daisy almost seemed to become animated by Tom's approach to the table. She leaned closer to me and said, Nick, it's wonderful to have you at my table. You almost resemble Earl. Doesn't he almost look like a rose? She asked me, Baker. I felt that this was a very strange thing for Daisy saying. I don't look anything like a lord. I know she was only trying to make me feel comfortable with her warmth and sincerity. A few moments later, she placed her neck on the table, excused herself, and went inside. Miss Baker and I briefly looked at each other. I almost said something when she quickly said, "Shh." We listened closely and could hear voices mumbling in one of the rooms inside. Miss Baker moved closer as she getting better. We can continue to listen. At one point, we could understand most of what was being said, but then it became incoherent. I decided to try and make some conversation, so I said, "You mentioned Mr. Gatsby earlier. He happened to be my neighbor." I want to hear what they say," Miss Baker said. "Is there any interest?" I asked. "You don't know?" she asked, looking very surprised. I thought everyone knew. "I don't know anything," I told her. "Really? Tom has another woman in New York," she told me. I stared in question. "Another woman?" She nodded her head. "She doesn't even have the manners not to call at dinner time," remarked Miss Baker. Miss Baker had only just finished speaking and Tom and Daisy returned to the dinner table. Sorry for leaving," apologized Daisy. She sat down, looked at Miss Baker and then at me. Then she said, "I went outside for a minute. It's such a lovely evening. It's all very romantic. I think there's a nightingale on the run at the moment." "Tom isn't romantic." "It's very romantic," he replied. He turned to me and said, "Why don't you take her down this table after dinner if there's still some light?" Still some light. At that moment, the telephone rang. Daisy shook her head at Tom, and Dora thought of the stay was forgotten. It was a very uncomfortable moment. I remembered that the candle had been lit again, and I looked everyone to avoid looking at Tom and Daisy. Even Miss Baker, who hadn't ever seen about her, ignored the existence of the uninvited fifth guest that evening. Dinner finally came to end, and Tom and Miss Baker walked slowly back into the house. Daisy and I walked around the outside the house along at the connected veranda. You stopped the porch in the front, where we ended up sitting on the wicker seat. Daisy leaned forward, putting chin in her hand like she was pondering some great mystery. I knew that feeling must have been turmoil, so I decided to ask her some questions about her young daughter. She suddenly spoke, however. "We are cousins. We don't even know it very well. Why didn't you come to my wedding?" she asked. "I was too overseas because of the war," I said. "I suppose I've been having a terrible time. I've become very skeptical about absolutely everything," she told me. I could certainly understand why she felt that way. I waited for her to continue to speak, but she didn't. I made another attempt asking about her little girl. "She does everything every other child does, I suppose. She talks now." "I guess she eats everything too," I said. "Yes, he does," Daisy told me. "Can you imagine what I said with Bone? Do you want me to tell you?" "Yes, please tell me," I said. "It will show you how cynical I am about everything in life now. I have no idea of where Tom was when she was born. She was only about an hour old when I woke up. I asked a nurse whether my child was a boy or a girl, and she told me it was a girl. I started crying. Then will I said, I have a daughter. I hope she is really quite a stupid poor girl. That's the best thing woman to be in this world. I hope she's the gorgeous. Ooh, everything life is Red Bull. Daisy said. I know that everyone feels the same way. People at the bounce country do anyway. I've been to all of them, and everyone feels the same way about things that I do. I sing everything and then everything. She let her laugh filled with reason. God, are they sophisticated? I'm so investigated. At that, she stopped speaking, and it was only then that I realized that she was being sarcastic. I suddenly felt uncomfortable, and that the evening had already planned to extort some sympathetic feeling from me. I looked at her, and suddenly a sneer appeared on her face. It was like she was emphasizing her association to some secret organization, something. Daisy and I ventured drifted into the room on the time Miss Baker were. They were aged and it were wrong count. She was reading to Tom from Saturday Evening Post. Her voice was both melodious and contrary. Just behind them, a lamp gave off lovely light which reflected off so lovely on Tom. 58 page. The Great Gatsby, Scott Fitzgerald. Now Ruby I understood, and this time when I listen and speak, so like shadowing, I understood and I can imagine, I can follow them. Other hand, I had no intention of being rumored into marriage. Their interest rather touched me and made them less remotely rich. Nevertheless, I was confused and a little disgusted as I drove away. It seems to me that the thing for Daisy to do was to rush out of the house, child in arms, but apparently there were no such intentions in her head. As for Tom, the fact that he had some woman in New York was really less surprising than that he had been depressed by a book. Something was making him nibble at the edge of stellar ideas, as if his sturdy physical egotism no longer nourished his peremptory heart. Already it was a deep summer on Roadhouse roofs, and in front of the wayside garages, where new red petrol pumps set out in pools of light, and when I reached my estate at West Egg, I ran the car under its shed and sat for a while on an abandoned grass roller in the yard. The wind had blown off, leaving a loud bright night with winds beating in the trees and a persistent organ sounds as the full billows of the earth blow the frog life. The silhouette of a moving cat waves across the moonlight and turning my head to watch it. I saw that I was not alone. 50 feet away, a figure had emerged from the shadow of my neighbor's mansion and was standing with his hands in his pockets, regarding the silver paper of the stars. Something in his leisurely movement and the secure position of his feet upon the room suggests that it was Mr. Gatsby himself, come out to determine what share was his of our local heavens. I decided to call to him. Miss Baker had mentioned him at dinner, and that would do for an introduction. But I didn't call to him, for he gave a sudden intimation that he was content to be alone. He stretched out his arms toward the dark water in a curious way, and far as I was from him, I could have sworn he was trembling. Involuntarily, I glanced seaward and distinguished nothing except a single green light, mid and far away, that might have been the end of the dock. When I looked once more for Gatsby, he had vanished, and I was alone again in the unique darkness. Chapter 2. About halfway between West Egg and New York, the motor road hastily joins the Royal Road and runs beside it for a quarter of a mile, so as to shrink away from a certain desolate area of land. This is a valley of shades, a fantastic from where seas grow like wheat into ridges and hills and grotesque gardens, where ashes take the forms of houses and chimneys and rising smoke, and finally with a transcendent effort of ash-gray men. She moved dimly and already crumbling through the powdery air. Occasionally a line of gray cars crawled along an invisible track, gives track tumbling through the powdery air. Occasionally the line gray cars crawl again. Invisible track gives out a ghostly crack and comes to rest. And immediately the ash-gray men swarm up with slender space and stir up an impenetrable crowd which screen their obscure operations from your sight. Just at the moment in need. About halfway between West Egg and New York, the motor road hastily joined the railroad and ran beside it for a quarter of a mile, so as to shrink away from a curtain desolate area of land. This is Valley of Ashes, a fantastic from where ashes grow like what into ridiculous and hills and grotesque grandeurs, where ashes take the form of houses and chimneys and rising smoke, and finally with a transcendent fold of ash-gray men who move dimly and already crumbling through the powdery air. Occasionally a line of grey cars crawled along an invisible track, gives out a ghastly crack and comes to rest, and immediately the ash-gray men swarm up with random space and stir up the immediate impenetrable cloud which screened their obscure operations from your sight. But above the grey men and the spans of blank dust which drift endlessly over it, you perceive after a moment the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eklund. The eyes of Dr. T.J. Eklundberg are blue and gigantic. Their retinas are on yard high. They look out of no face, but instead from the pair of enormous yellow spectacles which pass over a non-existent nose. Evidently some wild work of an occultist set them there to fatten his practice in the borough of Queens, and then sank down himself into eternal blindness, or forget them and moved away. But his eyes, dimmed a little by many painterless days, under sun and rain, brought on over the solemn dumping ground. The Ballad of Ashid is bounded on one side by a small fall river, and when the drawbridge is up to let barge through, the passengers on waiting trains can stare at the dismal scan for as long as half an hour. There is always a halt there of at least a minute, and it was because of this that I first met Tom Buchanan's mistress. The fact that he had one was insisted upon whenever he was broken. His acquaintances resented the fact that he turned up in popular cafes with her and leaving her at a table soughtoned about chatting with whomsoever he knew. Thought I was curious to see her. I had no desire to meet her, but I did. I went up to New York with Tom on the train one afternoon, and when we stopped by the airship, he jumped to his feet and, taking hold of my elbow, literally forces me from the car. We are getting off, he insisted. I want you to meet my girl. I think he's tanked up a girl deal at luncheon, and his determination to have my company bordered on violence. The supercilious assumption was that on Sunday, after I had nothing better to do, I followed him over a low, whitewashed railroad fence, and we walked back 100 yards along the road under Dr. Eckleberg's persistent stare. The only building in sight was a small block of yellow brick sitting on the edge of the wasteland, a sort of compact main street ministering to it, and contiguous to absolutely nothing. One of the three shops in contained was for rent, and another was an all-night restaurant, approached by a trail of a shed. The third was a garage repairs. George B. Wilson, car bought and sold and I followed Tom inside. The interior was a, a prosperous and bare. The only car visible was the dust-covered bricked over force, which crouched in a dim corner. It has currents to me that this shadow of a garage must be a blend, and some sumptuous and romantic apartment were concealed over here when the proprietor himself appeared in a door of an office wiping his hands on a piece of waste. He was a bland, spiritless man, anemic and faintly handsome. When he saw us, a dumb gleam of hope sprang into his light blue eyes. "Hello, Wilson, old man," said Tom, slumping him jovially on the shoulder. "How's business?" "I can't complain," answered Wilson unconvincingly. "When are you going to sell me that car?" "Next week. I've got my man working on it now." "Works pretty slow, doesn't he?" "No, he doesn't," said Tom coldly. "And if you feel that way about it, maybe I'd better sell it somewhere else after all." I don't mean that explained Wilson quickly. "I just meant..." His voice faded off, and Tom glanced impatiently around the garage. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs, and in a moment the thickish figure of a woman blocked out the light from the office door. She was in the middle theatrics and faintly stood, but she carried her fresh sensuously as some woman can her face above a spotted dress of dark blue crepe. The chin contained no fat set or gleam of beauty, but there was an immediately perceptible vitality about her, as if the nerves of her body were continually smoldering. She smiled slowly and walking through her husband as if he were a ghost. shook hands with Tom. Thumbs up, looking him flush in the eye. Keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the prize. Then she wet her lips and without turning around spoke to her husband in a soft, chorus voice. I'm not sure that one chorus voice. Chorus voice. Make something voice. Explain about boys. Get some chairs. Why don't you so somebody can sit down? Oh sure, agreed Wilson hurriedly, and went toward the little office, mingling immediately with the comment color of the wall. A white ashen dust veiled his dark suit and his fuller hair as it belied everything in the vicinity, except his wife, who moved close to Tom. I want to see you, said Tom intently. Get on the next train. All right. I will meet you by the news stand on the lower level. She nodded and moved away from him just as George Wilson emerged with 2 chairs from his office door. We waited for her down the road and out of sight. It was a few days before the 4th of July, and a gray squall when the Italian child was setting torpedoes in a row among the railroad track. Trimble place, isn't it? Said Tom, exchanging a phone with Dr. Iqbal. Awful. It doesn't look to get away. It does her good to get away. Doesn't she, husband object? Wilson? He thinks she goes to see her sister in New York. He's so bummed. He doesn't know he's arrived. So Tom Bunchman and his girl and I went up together to New York, or not quite together, for Miss Wilson sat discreetly in another car. Tom deferred that much to the sensibilities of those East eagers who might be on the train. She had changed her dress to a brown figured muslin, which strapped tight over her leather white hips as Tom helped her to the platform in New York. At a newsstand, she bought a copy of Town Tattoo and a moving picture magazine, and in the situation drugstore some cold cream and a small flask of perfume. Upstairs in the salon, a chime drive she let for taxicabs drive away before she selected a new one, lavender colored with gray unhostily, and in this we sailed out from the mess of the station into the glowing sunshine. But immediately she turned sharply from the window and, running forward, tapped on the front glass. "I want to get one of those dogs," she said in earnestly. "I want to get one for the apartment. They're nice to have a dog." We backed up to a grass old man who bare an absurd resemblance to John D. Rockefeller. In a basket swung from his neck whirled a dozen very recent puppies